Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping back in time to explore a truly striking and honestly heartbreaking chapter in North American maritime history. Picture this: the waters off the coast of Nova Scotia in the 1920s. Treacherous, wildly unpredictable. Heading out to sea back then literally meant stepping into the great unknown. You relied on your gut, your experience, and just raw courage. No satellite imagery, no radar. Today, we're going to unpack the Great August Gale of 1926. We'll break down exactly what happened, why it was so utterly devastating, and how it permanently altered the maritime world. So, to really wrap our heads around this event, we have to ground ourselves in the reality of August 1926. Out on the Atlantic Ocean, modern forecasts just didn't exist. Now, the sailors navigating these offshore fishing grounds, they were incredibly skilled. But when it came to anticipating sudden, massive shift in the atmosphere, they were operating entirely blind. They were completely vulnerable. And then, nature unleashed absolute fury. Winds of 120 miles per hour. On August 7th, 1926, a massive hurricane literally tore through the waters off Nova Scotia. Historical records show this storm reached major hurricane strength earlier on in its life cycle, peaking right around that 120-mile-per-hour mark. And yeah, it did weaken slightly as it moved toward Atlantic Canada, but it still whipped up incredibly violent conditions offshore. To put that kind of power into perspective for us today, its peak intensity would equal a Category 3 hurricane. Now, the Saffir-Simpson scale wasn't even a thing in 1926, but looking back at the historical data, that is the sheer raw power we're talking about. But here's the thing. A Category 3 storm over the open ocean is perilous no matter what year it is, right? So what made this specific storm so incredibly deadly? Well, it actually wasn't just the barometric pressure or the wind speed. The true catalyst for this disaster, the piece that turned a bad storm into an absolute catastrophe, lies in a very fatal human vulnerability. Think about the stark contrast here between the environment and the technology of the time. On one hand, you have the 1920s Lunenburg fleet. These are wooden schooners out on offshore fishing grounds with absolutely zero radio equipment. None. On the other hand, you have a massive, Category 3 equivalent hurricane barreling right toward them. Because they lacked radios, these crews couldn't receive any advanced storm warnings. And, tragically, once the storm hit and they were literally in a fight for their lives, they had absolutely no way to transmit a distress signal, no way to call for rescue. This fatal technology gap, that's the absolute core of this tragedy. Section 1. Tragic loss at sea, the human toll. The historical records from that day paint a really grim picture. Two prominent Lunenburg fishing schooners were completely overwhelmed. Take a look at the Sylvia Mosher, which, by the way, was actually one of the leading vessels of the entire Lunenburg fleet. It was driven ashore and wrecked on Sable Island. Every single one of her 26 crew members was lost. Then you have the Sadie A. Knickle, which was also lost near Sable Island. And the destruction wasn't just limited to the local fishing fleet either. A Norwegian freighter named the Ringhorn wrecked near Scatteri Island, and another vessel, the Edith Newhall, was also lost. The ocean was just completely unforgiving. The most crucial, heart-wrenching point here is the staggering human cost. When you look at Canadian government records regarding just those two Lunenburg schooners, the Sylvia Mosher and the Sadie A. Knickle, the combined loss of life stands at 49. 49 men, gone, swallowed by the sea in a matter of hours and completely cut off from the rest of the world. But they weren't the only victims. When historians factor in the other vessels affected by the hurricane, like the Ringhorn and the Edith Newhall, the scale of the tragedy expands even further. While 49 men were lost on the schooners alone, total estimated fatalities from the hurricane rose to between 55 and 58 people. Think about that. In a single day, nearly 60 lives were extinguished simply because they had no earthly way of knowing what was coming. Section 2. A community left mourning, the devastating impact. You know, it's so easy to get caught up in wind speeds and ship names, but for the small fishing communities of Nova Scotia, this disaster was devastating on a deeply personal level. The men lost at sea were fathers, they were sons, brothers, neighbors. Entire families woke up one morning to find that their primary wage earners were just gone forever. And this grief wasn't isolated to a few scattered households. Entire coastal villages were left mourning together. The social and economic fabric of these tight-knit communities was basically torn apart overnight. Section 3. Legacy of the August Gales. Systemic flaws exposed. The loss of the fleet violently exposed the extreme danger of fishing without reliable communications. In the immediate aftermath, loud, urgent calls came from both the public and the industry to equip fishing schooners with radios and to improve rescue capabilities. I mean, in hindsight, it seems totally obvious, right? Yet, meaningful change came tragically slowly. Upgrading an entire fleet takes time, it takes money, it requires regulatory pressure, and the wheels of progress were just not turning fast enough. And that agonizingly slow progress, well, it proved deadly. After the Great Gale struck in August of 1926, the fleet spent the next year pushing for radio equipment. But because the fleet remained largely unequipped, history basically repeated itself. Just 1 year later, in August 1927, another catastrophic storm struck the exact same region. And because those safety measures weren't fully in place yet, it caused even greater losses among the Lunenburg fishing fleet. Because these two massive events happened back to back, striking the exact same communities and exploiting the exact same technological vulnerabilities, history linked them forever. The combined disasters of 1926 and 1927 became collectively known as the August Gales. It's a historical term that encapsulates a very dark, deeply mournful chapter in the history of Atlantic Canadian fisheries. So what does this all mean for us today? The Great August Gale of 1926 is so much more than just a story about a hurricane. It is a stark reminder of what it actually means to face the raw power of nature without the shield of modern technology. Today, we take things like GPS, satellite weather forecasting, and instant global communication completely for granted. But this explainer really highlights the very real human cost that was paid before those safety nets existed. I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful quote from the historical records. For the fishermen, the Atlantic was not simply a source of livelihood. It was a place where, on any given day, nature could turn against them without warning. We look back at their vulnerability now, and we feel so safe behind our modern web of technology. But it really begs a chilling question. As our world grows increasingly complex, what modern vulnerabilities are we currently blind to, just waiting for our own August Gale to expose them? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.